Hello, good evening. So tonight I'm going to be going over the employee attrition database based on the IBM Kaggle dataset. It's not based on IBM real data. In fact, after speaking with Dr. Island, I've learned that this was something that the employees had to study after a 2018 lawsuit. But anyways, it's still it's still something that is meaningful here. But I do have my Python, my Jupyter notebook loaded up. I'm not going to be going over any code, probably just touching on some graphs, but mostly what I want to do is explain how the analytics turns into business value. So we'll be stepping through that. So we could see a couple different charts here. Um, a few that are pretty obvious, like the sales representative being the highest rate of attrition. Um, we actually have that backed up with peer studies, although I'm not sure you need it. Um, but the younger employees lack career progression. Most attrition occurs between 1 to 3 years because new hires haven't developed organizational loyalty or they have unrealistic expectations. Also, as we'll see later, they don't get stock options, which also plays a role. And here we have some citations with the sports sales tickets. One in every four entry-level salespeople detected within the first year, and 1 to 2 defect within 26 months. Um, so here we have some more EDA with the work environment factors, overtime impact, work-life balance is very important. It's almost as important as the overtime, distance from home, business travel. We'll get through that, and then we'll just focus on this a little bit, where we have the attrition rate by overtime status, which is very high. It's very much like the work-life balance, where if you're very much focused on work, a lot of times you're going to split from the job. Surprisingly, distance from home doesn't play as much of a role as I thought it would, but stock options do. And we could see a 30.5 attrition rate for overtime workers versus 10.4 for non-overtime workers. Um, chronic overtime leads to burnout, health issues, work-life imbalance. It's well documented. So I think that the work-life balance and overtime are obviously correlated. However, both of them seem to show a big difference when it comes to attrition. Um, and like I said, with the replacement cost of employees, it's very good for HR or for a company to point this out early because um, it could cost them, excuse me, annually possibly like double the salary. So like I says here, at a 200% replacement cost, that we're talking $4 to $8 million turnover cost annually. Um, yeah, the employees rating and that's going back to the graph where the employee rating at 1 was poor, like almost 100% attrition. I mean, that's just obvious, but I do have some citations to back it up where we have this overtime. A lot of these are related to the medical field, which you could, I mean, make sense because they're overworked. But and the stock options was another citation that I had that made a lot of sense, where you get people that get stock options early and late, and they both stick around. But now the correlation analysis, we have a feature correlation matrix. Um, And here are our top correlations with attrition: total working years, job level, years in current role, monthly income, age. And I want to point out I did custom features some of these features, but yeah, with the experience clustering, like 7.78 correlations. The years at company, years current role, years with current manager are obviously highly correlated. So I want to get more to the analysis, but I did want to step over this. So here's my advanced feature engineering. I created the tenure category, income quartile, overtime binary, career progression. These sort of And we could see that, yeah, these are the 11 that were created. And then here's the pre-processing pipeline. Now, for my first model, I did lasso feature regression. Um, and this actually turned out to be my best model, which I tested quite a few. It selected 43 out of the 64. And it sees like I mean, personally, I guess it's because I don't travel much, but to me, like I think like traveling a lot would be cool, but I also get why that would get old. And apparently that's a huge feature where people do not want to travel frequently. That's usually, I mean, I guess if you have a big family, I don't have kids, so but a high risk profile, I expected that to be higher than high business travel, but they're pretty much in sync there. Work-life balance also expected to be high, and age. But Lasso automatically selected 43 of the features and achieved a 82.8 accuracy. The HR data, it has so many redundant variables. Um, I like Lasso because it eliminates the noise, keeping only predictive signals. It gives you a little bit more focused, data-driven attrition. Not only thing, it doesn't, yeah, like I've had some problems with some other models. So we could see here that the high risk profile is pretty important. And this is like when they say high risk profile, that's people that jump around from job to job. So this is another thing that makes sense. If you got an employee that's been to 10 different jobs in a year, obviously this is somebody that you would want to flag with this. Um, Employee with history of frequent company changes are statistically more likely to leave again. The composite satisfaction score is highly predictive, and it validates that employee surveys aren't just HR busy work, but it is somewhat of a predictive tool. Older employees are significantly less likely to leave. I think they also correlate with the stock options, especially with bigger companies. So they're better taken care of. Um, I mean, we could go into that even more as far as what the previous generations had over the current generation. So they're better taken care of. Let's just say that much. But yeah, career stability, family obligations, all of that for sure. But the stakeholder, and what I want to point out, like I wanted to like show the HR value, the business value, and the stakeholder bottom line on all of this stuff. So, the model confirms the intuition that the problem areas, while quantifying their relative importance for resource allocation. So I step into a random forest. And we could see an AUC with 8174. This gives us the 10 best features, another work life, very similar. Um, the random forest achieved lower than lasso, but it reveals different insights. The lasso has individual predictors. Random forest captures how the variables work together, like the low income with the poor work-life balance, combinations, HR value. It gives you like a more nuanced approach. So this is one of the first times I've been using SMOTE, but it's a really good for balancing skewed data, as we'll see shortly. I've used XGBoost with the good good performance before, but this was my first time doing this. And we could see here that before Smote, we had a very skewed a data set, and then it's very balanced after. This did pretty well. Um, and yeah, you could see the overtime was the heaviest. Smote was essential because the original data set had 5-to-1 ratio. It was a severely imbalanced. And I knew that. I figured that with attrition. Without smoke, the models would just predict everyone stays. So yeah, I mean, you had a lot of issues with that, so it actually does help a lot. Cross-validation jumped to 97.8, which is suggest overfitting. So that wasn't really the best model, but it was still interesting to try. And then I did a comprehensive model comparison. And I got some cool charts here. I want to check out the ROC. Let me go up. We got the comprehensive, we got the lasso, the random forest, the XGBoost to smoke. I always want to throw XGBoost in there because it's usually been a good friend. But I thought it would perform better. But anyways, this is some interesting charts. And as we could see here, the lasso wins for the HR implementation. Um, the simpler models are more trustworthy. The precision's 80%. When it flags someone as a flight risk, they'll likely leave. XGBoost precision was far lower. This matters because the HR resources are so limited within a company, you know? So the value is super high. And getting back to the main purpose is the value. High precision needs to be focused on. That's what we're trying to achieve here. Lasso only had 4 false positives as 11 for XGBoost. Fewer wasted resources on employees that weren't going to leave anyway. So I came to the conclusion that deploying Lasso as the production model was the best move. IT can implement it quickly. Managers understand the logic. There's a ton of upside for that. So now I move on to feature importance analysis. And I got some cool charts here. We could see here that, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. High risk profile is typically the biggest one. I know overtime is big, age is very important, but we get some insights here. And then here they're listed. That's the top 15. This, excuse me, this analysis matters because the average scores across Lasso, Random Forest, XGBoost, they identify the construct predictors because the different models could have biases. So consensus features are your most reliable retention levels. And again, the HR value, you want to focus on resources on factors all models agree drive attrition. So your number one predictor, the high risk profile. Number two, work-life balance. Number three, age factor. And the implementation, you want to focus retention budget on, your top five. And here's a business risk analysis, and this goes more into like I was talking about a lot with the value that it could provide a company, where we could get into some financials with that. So here's the business. So I broke it down into low risk, medium risk, and high risk. The total employees, the actual attritions, and the attrition rate. The average risk score and the risk score standard deviation. Um, we got 1,470 employees, attrition rate at 16.3, the average salary at 78K, and the current attrition cost is 27 million. We identified some, and that it looks like the potential annual savings with a 50% reduction would be of over $500,000, of almost 600. So this is like, yeah, very nice. Um, the 78K per employee, 100% of average salary. The attrition is likely the second largest expense after payroll, as I mentioned earlier. And we're looking at nearly $28 million in preventable cost, which is great. The Model 2 identifies two employees with 100% accuracy. Yeah, and here we go back to the savings, like $585,000 a year in savings. That's a 50% reduction just from this analytics. I mean, assuming this was a real company and not something that IBM was playing with, but you get my point. This would be a huge deal for any company because employee turnover is so important. I used to run a business, and that was a big thing. It really is very difficult to deal with. So this sort of analytics is super important. That's why I picked this project. But yeah, the implementation costs are so minimal compared to the savings. You're talking intervention costs 5 to 10K per employee, but also to be able to flag high risk employees. That's also great too. Proactive versus reactive. That's actually what I was leading into. Um, the expensive post-departure hiring to preventive retention, resource allocation, focus expensive interventions on like 45 medium to high risk employees instead of the whole workload. In other words, you're gonna like whoever is flagged by these analytics, you focus on them instead of your whole workload. You're gonna save money, and then this is kind of the way to go with that. You retain institutional knowledge and avoid productivity gaps. But yeah, the predictive model transforms 27.7 million cost center into a manageable targeted retention strategy with 58 uh almost 600,000 in annual savings potential. So as we wrap up here, I got a couple more cool things to show you. Um, the employment segmentation. Oh, excuse me. Um, and this kind of just breaks down, and this is also like what my peer reviewed research backed up what common knowledge is, but I also want to back it up with analytics as well. Your high risk employees are going to be your salespeople. It just, that's the way it is. And also your single people, but and overtime. So, I mean, those are three big factors. And I mean, really, the one that was shocking to me is the traveling. I guess because I don't travel much, I thought traveling would be cool. Apparently, people that travel a lot hate it. But anyways, that was very interesting data to me, and you could see the age variations, the monthly income variations, and everything else. Um, and your highest attrition risk are the young single sales representatives. Shocker, right? But that's what the data backs up, and then overtime and stress, low satisfaction. And then I got some insights and recommendations on how to improve because, again, we want to provide the company value. So here we have the best. Okay, yeah, well, that's the best performing model. But I want to get into the analytics and the value provided. So high priority. We want to implement the overtime management program. Overtime workers have a 193% higher attrition rate. We got to fix that first. Then the work-life balance program, you'd have to, I mean, I guess that's why all these Silicon Valley like companies like Facebook, they put ping pong tables in the office. You got to do something. You need some sort of work-life balance. You can't be overloaded. So these two things seem to be the biggest driving factors. Um, Satisfaction, engagement, initiative. Obviously, employees want to be engaged, and yeah, I'm surprised that number three went over number four, which is compensation review, which obviously that plays a role. So the monthly attrition, the success matrix, or the monthly attrition rate by department, average overtime hours by employee, employee satisfaction scores, compensation competitive ratio, high risk employee retention rate, and the expected outcomes. We're looking at a projected annual savings of over $8 million dollars if everything works out well from this hypothetical company. So, but the immediate focus is the high risk employees. So here's my model deployment recommendations. Looking at a deployment, I put this up. I don't know. This was just a little bit extra I was getting into. But I was looking at a phase one, a pilot phase. You deploy the model for the high risk. Like definitely focus on the high risk first. This is how I would approach it if I was really working HR, like doing analytics for HR. I would set this up with the pilot program, see how this works out, reevaluate my data afterwards, hopefully scale in phase two and then optimize in phase three. Um, and yeah, I guess I'm pretty much wrapped up here. Yeah, the continuously. So yeah, just the lasso logistic regression had the 80.82, which I thought was pretty impressive. It's far better than what's usual. It's the best one I was able to get. Able to save over almost 600,000 a year. Sounds pretty nice. Again, business value. So, yeah, no, I was very impressed with that, and I hope you are too. So you have a good night, and I hope I see you next semester.